My name is Karen. I am an online student at Wartburg Seminary and will be presenting Commandments 4 through 8 from the Ten Commandments. The theme of neighbors ties these commandments together. We will look at what Martin Luther had to say in the small and the large catechisms. Additionally, we will look at how these commandments might apply to our current lives. Beginning with Commandment 4, we see how we are to behave at home. By the end of the fourth commandment, we are out the front door and into our neighborhood. Luther meant neighbor in a much larger sense that included our local area as well as nation. Today, these commandments can be looked at in even broader terms to include the entire world. The fourth commandment, honor your father and mother. In Luther's small catechism, he says, we are to fear and love God so that we may neither despise nor anger our parents and others in authority, but instead honor and serve, obey, love, and respect them. Luther states that this is the first and the greatest of the neighbor commandments. The position of father and mother is the highest calling in life. This is the only human title where the highest respect must be given to the people in that role. Honor requires us not only to address them affectionately and with high esteem, but above all to show by our actions, both of heart and body, that we respect them very highly, and next to God, we give them the very highest place. This makes sense even in our modern context, but Luther takes this idea even further. He admonishes children to listen to their parents and hold their tongues, even if their parents go too far. Luther goes on to say that children are to serve their parents as God's representatives, no matter what the parents are like. Their personalities or eccentricities should not lead them to be disrespectful to their parents. And even if the parents go too far, is hard to accept in today's world. We have laws that try to protect children from parents who go too far in their discipline. We know that there can be deep wounds made by words as well as actions. Luther encourages everyone to take care of their parents in their old age. One of the best sermons that I have ever heard reminded us that we should also honor our children. Luther states this in a way when he talks about a father's responsibility in taking care of his household, but he does not go all the way to honoring children or others under his roof. Today, mothers are just as likely to be the breadwinners or the only authority figure in the home. In our world, most of us have only our immediate families under our roof. More and more have more than 2 generations in their homes. Grandparents are moving in with their children and grandchildren. We must honor our children by being willing to correct them when needed and be good role models for them and love them. In being good role models, we need to show them that we have respect for our own parents so that the children will know how to show us respect. We'd like to share with you a story that gets this point across. This is the story of the wooden bowl. A frail old man went to live with his son, daughter-in-law, and 4-year-old grandson. The old man's hands trembled. His eyesight was blurred. His step faltered. The family ate together at the table, but the elderly grandfather's shaky hands and failing sight made eating difficult. Peas rolled off his spoon onto the floor. When he grasped the glass, milk spilled on the tablecloth. The son and daughter-in-law became irritated with the mess. "We must do something about father," said the son. "I've had enough of his spilled milk, noisy eating, and food on the floor." So the husband and wife set a small table in the corner. There grandfather ate alone, while the rest of the family enjoyed dinner. Since grandfather had broken a dish or two, his food was served in a wooden bowl. When the family glanced in grandfather's direction, sometimes he had a tear in his eye as he sat alone. Still, the only words the couple had for him were sharp admonitions when he dropped a fork or spilled food. The 4-year-old watched it all in silence. One evening before supper, the father noticed his son playing with wood scraps on the floor. He asked the child sweetly, "What are you making?" Just as sweetly, the boy responded, "Oh, I am making a little bowl for you and Mama to eat your food in when I grow up." The 4-year-old smiled and went back to work. The words so struck the parents that they were speechless. Then tears started to stream down their cheeks. Though no word was spoken, both knew what must be done. That evening, the husband took grandfather's hand and gently led him back to the family table. For the remainder of his days, he ate every meal with the family. And for some reason, neither husband nor wife seemed to care any longer when a fork was dropped, milk spilled, or the tablecloth soiled. It is the child who very quietly shows his parents that they are teaching this child to disrespect them by their showing disrespect to his grandfather. Luther not only talks about the family in his commentary, but men servants and maid servants who lived with some of the families. He states that men servants and maid servants should treat their masters as they would a father. They should honor their masters in everything they do. He takes this structure out into public life too. Civil leaders should be included in this father and child paradigm. They should be shown respect for their position. The last group that Luther points out is spiritual fathers. Pastors and spiritual leaders should be shown respect and honor. The people in these roles also have a responsibility to bring their children up in the knowledge and fear of the Lord. If a child has a gift for ministry, that child should be encouraged to use that gift in service to God. The thing that I found the most interesting in Luther's explanation is his talk against the monastic life. He believed that monks and nuns were not living up to this commandment because they were not taking care of their parents. The monastic life set them apart from family and society. Commandment number 5, you shall not kill. We are not to kill our neighbor. In fact, we should help them. Luther now focuses on the neighbors outside of our homes. We must not kill either by hand, heart, or word, by signs or gestures, by aiding and abetting. Many people, although they do not actually commit murder, nevertheless curse others and wish such frightful things on them that if they were to come true, they would soon put an end to them. Kevin DeYoung includes anger as a part of this commandment in his book, The Good News We Almost Forgot, published in 2001. He mentions getting angry at a driver in front of him who was going 55 miles an hour where he should have been going 70. The sin of anger overtook him. In today's world, this is a great example. I have yet to meet anyone who has not been angry behind the wheel at some point. Anger can plant the seeds of murder. In our society today, it seems like we are all suffering from an addiction to anger. DeYoung also points out that there is a difference between righteous indignation and anger. Jesus had righteous indignation when he cleared the temple. We have anger when our frustrations get out of control. In the second place, this commandment is violated not only when we do evil, but also when we have the opportunity to do good to our neighbors, to prevent, protect, and save them from suffering bodily harm or injury, but fail to do so. The sixth commandment, you shall not commit adultery. Luther says in his small catechism, we are to fear and love God so that we lead pure and decent lives in word and deed, and each of us loves and honors his or her spouse. Not only is the outward act forbidden, but also every kind of cause, provocation, and means, so that your heart, your lips, and your entire body may be chaste and afford no occasion, aid, or encouragement to unchastity, no matter what it is called. Today, adultery continues to threaten our society. In his book, Jesus Have I Loved But Paul, J.R. Daniel Kirk points out that monogamous, homosexual, and heterosexual couples are not breaking down the fabric of our society. It is those who cheat on each other, both homosexual and heterosexual couples. I realize that Luther would not include homosexual couples in this last statement, but he would agree that those who cheat can spread disease and create chaos. This also includes those who sleep with many others while not in a committed relationship. In short, all are required to live chastely themselves and also to help their neighbor do the same. So if your neighbor comes to you and tells you that they want to be with someone other than their spouse, you should warn them against it. Once again, Luther makes comments against the monastic life. Therefore, all vows of chastity outside marriage are condemned and annulled by this commandment. Indeed, all poor, captive consciences, deceived by their monastic vows, are even commanded to forsake their unchaste existence and enter into married life. This statement is interesting. I know that Luther encouraged all of the priests, nuns, and monks to get married. And from stories that I've heard, Katharina von Bora had to talk him into getting married to her. I have always thought that the best decision Luther ever made was to marry Katie. Living a good marriage, according to Luther, is good work. You shall not steal. We are to fear and love God so that we neither take our neighbor's money or property, nor acquire them by using shoddy merchandise or crooked deals, but instead help them to improve and protect their property and income. This commandment is not just talking about burglary and theft. It also covers cheating our neighbors in unjust dealings. An example of this is cheating someone in the stores, such as not paying someone enough for their product, or cheating someone with a false scale, counterfeit coins, or defective merchandise. Luther points out that the false businessmen may get by man's legal system, but they will have to answer to God. He also instructs manservant and maidservants to take care of their masters' and mistresses' stuff. If they mistreat their masters' or mistresses' stuff, it is as good as stealing. Luther takes this further to mean that if your neighbor is in need, you're to help them. We are to lend to both friends and foes. There are so many ways to steal. We can steal reputations, stuff, respect, and trust. The second part of Luther's statement says that we should help our neighbor when they are in need. We should be helping the homeless, the mentally ill, and all others in our society who are in need. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor is the 8th commandment. Luther states in his small catechism, we are to fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbors, betray or slander them, or destroy their reputations. Instead, we are to come to their defense, speak well of them, and interpret everything they do in the best possible light. Luther states in the Large Catechism, besides our own bodies, our spouse, our temporal property, we have one more treasure that is indispensable to us, namely our honor and good reputation. According to Luther, this also refers to courts of justice. Some people in Luther's time and today use their stations and money to adversely affect others. Also, this is pointed at judges. to remind them that they need to listen to the facts of the case and judge without prejudice. The third aspect of this commandment hits us a little closer to home. It involves our tongues. We should not injure our neighbor by saying bad things about them. No one has the right to judge or reprove a neighbor publicly unless they are in the position of a judge or legal authority. Even if you know something bad about someone else and you know that it is true, you are not to speak evil about that person. Keep it to yourself. Rebuke to their face those who gossip and slander others. If your brother or sister sins against you, go and tell them in private. Do not go into the streets with gossip. Masters can correct their servants and parents can correct their children, but in private, not in front of the community. Luther points out that the tongue is small and weak, but that it can do the most damage to other people. This commandment reminded me of the phrase that we said as children: "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." We knew even as we said this that that is not true. Many times within a week, how many times within a week do we remember hurtful things that either we have said to someone or that someone else has said to us? It is amazing to think of how many fights and battles begin with hurtful words. Jesus continues to teach us through parables. The Good Samaritan is the best way that I know how to end this presentation of the neighbor commandments. A reading from Luke. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved to pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him, and when I come back I will repay you whatever more you spend." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? He said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."